Hi there, and welcome to another one of my classic reviews where I review one of my all-time favourite movies. And in this video I'm going to be talking about Tokyo Story, which is one of the great masterpieces by the late great Yasujirō Ozu. I've already reviewed Late Spring as part of my classic series, and Late Spring has always been, in my opinion, Ozu's absolute masterpiece. It's one of my all-time favourite movies and a film I've seen many times. But Tokyo Story is a very close second, and his most acclaimed work. It is the film of Ozu's that is the most respected, the most well-renowned, the film that has had the greatest impact on cinema. And it is unquestionably a masterpiece. It is a really deep look at Ozu's usual themes of family and change and the ways that society struggles between the modern and the traditional. It's about that little divide in society, and I think Tokyo Story really is a fantastic film that deserves so much of its acclaim. So the first thing to say is that this is an Ozu film, so it has his very idiosyncratic style, and it obviously breaks the rules of cinema because Ozu basically did that all the time. This is the film that pays no attention to the 180 degrees rule, the camera just moves around, there's loads of pillow shots that last long times, there's also just the way that the story is even told. Key events are missed out entirely and only explained to us through dialogue, and the film just changes scene without really making it clear. It's a film which doesn't do a lot of what normal films do. And that's kind of what Ozu did. He kind of just told the story he wanted to tell, and he didn't really care about conforming in any way. He just would tell the same sort of story over and over again in his own way, and that was kind of what makes it so special, as well as the fact that they are really emotional, but they eschew melodrama. Ozu was never a fan of creating films that were over dramatic, so his films are very, very subtle and quiet, and yet they're emotionally devastating. Tokyo Story is one of his most devastating works, and its emotional build-up takes a long time to finally reach its point of real sadness or happiness or whatever it may be, but the melancholy it provides does not come through melodrama, it comes through subtlety, through things that we don't see, through things that are only spoken about. So the first thing that Tokyo Story is about is family, which is no surprise, this is an Ozu film. And it's about an elderly couple who go and visit their children and their grandchildren living in Tokyo. And what they find is that their children have sort of moved on with their lives, their children live their own lives, and the elderly couple feel like they have become a burden on their children and inconvenient. They feel kind of out of place. Tokyo is this big bustling city, and it's for the young. It's a place where everything is happening and everything's changing, and their family unit has kind of fallen down a little bit. The children don't really care for the elderly people anymore. They're starting their own families. There's an observation made that a married daughter is like a stranger, which kind of indicates that once people start their own families, they forget about their own family. And Ozu kind of often seems to be worried about the changes that are going on in Japan. He's worried about the changes to societal structures, the changes to traditional families. And Tokyo Story kind of shows us how the traditional family is breaking down, as well as the main setup being about family. We also have other indications that films about family. We have other characters who talk about their own disappointment in their children, how their children are not achieving or doing what they want their children to do. Disappointment with children seems to be something that the film emphasises. A part of the film regarding family is definitely also to do with disappointment. We're always disappointed with our children, we always expect more from them, and that expectation is something that people can't ever match. Expectation is too high, people expect too much. And perhaps that's a flaw with people, or maybe that is just the way it is. Maybe we have to accept that our expectations are too high. Expectation doesn't really help anybody. And the thing is that the film draws on the idea that growing up is inevitable. There's a shot of a grandmother watching her grandson, and it's quite clear that the grandson is like blissfully ignorant of what's going on. The grandmother's acutely aware that she's lived through all the stages of life and this boy has not, and he's going to, and he will inevitably grow up, and he will inevitably grow up and change and become distant from his parents and his grandparents, and the grandmother might not even be there to see that. Change will always happen. We will inevitably grow up and become different people. We will become detached culturally from our previous generation, and that will always happen, and we have to accept that, and learning to accept that is difficult, and it creates rifts within families, and it creates rifts within groups of people. And Tokyo Story really emphasises the way that a family unit can all break down and can all come together. And although the family in Tokyo Story certainly hateful to each other, they certainly love each other to varying extents, their way of showing love doesn't manifest in pure ways. It manifests in ways that appear selfish or ways that appear greedy or heartless, but that doesn't mean that they don't care. This isn't an abusive family or anything like that. It's a perfectly normal functioning family, and I think normal functioning families have their own problems and they have their own inevitabilities. We will inevitably not match expectations. We will inevitably be disappointed. We will inevitably grow up and change. We will forever not be who we want to be or what we are meant to be according to the standards of everyone else in their family, and that will always happen, so we have to just accept that. And the film really plays with the idea of the various characters trying to meet the expectations of each other and always kind of failing. The other thing that happens in Tokyo Story, as well as discussing the inevitability of growing up, is the inevitability of death. Death itself is inevitable and unavoidable, and death plays a part in Tokyo Story. There's, first of all, the little subtle things about Japan anyway that permeate the film. There's more westernised aspects coming through the film, and there's talk of World War II, which obviously happened less than a decade prior to this film's release, and characters are clearly sick of war and they have lost children in the war. So death permeates the picture in that way, but death also enters the film in the third act in a major way, and the death is used not really to show that this is kind of what happens, and the death is not like done melodramatically, it's done to show death is peaceful. It's slow and protracted and long, but it's peaceful and it's calm and it's quiet, and even the tears of the characters here are quiet. There basically is no tears, it's just sort of sniffles. The crying is quiet. It's that peaceful exit from life that is inevitable for most of us. And once death's over, once people have mourned, they go back to being who they were. When we face someone else's death, we ultimately go out of it being the same person we were, even if for a brief period of time we change and we become different. And that's kind of what makes the film kind of sad in a way, is that we have all this aspects of change and family, and then the biggest change of all, a death happens, and the film shows how the characters really don't change. It's not that big a moment, even if temporarily it really is massive. But there is a side to Tokyo Story that isn't completely melancholic and depressing and sad and about how family is a complete failure. There's also a really shining light, a shining hope within the film, and that comes through the character of Noriko, who is played by the wonderful Setsuko Hara. And Noriko is the only character in the film to genuinely care for the elderly couple. She isn't even a blood relative of them, she's their daughter-in-law, but she is selfless. She's the person who takes them out and actually treats them, actually takes them places, and she provides her with the happiest moments of their trip to Tokyo. And it's not because she provides her with the fanciest moments or the most extravagant scenes, because she's the one who shows them the most kindness, and the kindness is what makes them happy, and the kindness is what defines Noriko. Noriko is someone who is selfless, and that actually makes the other characters unhappy. They want her to be selfish. They view her as the one who needs to remarry and needs to move on with her life and become selfish. But at the same time, they want her to be selfless because she's the one who they can saddle the elder couple off with, and she'll actually deal with stuff. In the final act, the film shifts focus from the elder couple to Noriko, and I think it finally becomes clear that the film has actually always been about Noriko. Noriko was a background character for the vast majority of Tokyo Story, but she's always a harbinger of emotion. She's the one who always moves the story forward emotionally. Even though she doesn't become really central till the final few scenes, she really is a central character in the film. She's the one who provides everything that the film relies upon. And we see through her that people can be genuine. She's the only character to acknowledge her own flaws. She isn't nice to these people because she's nice. She's nice, but she thinks she's selfish and she thinks she's not good, and she's depressed herself and she's lonely, and she is the only one who acknowledges her own flaws, acknowledges her own sadness. And so in a way, when she cries, she's the only character in the entire film to genuinely cry, which is why Noriko is the shining ray of hope in the film, because she's the only one to provide a genuine sense of reality that isn't just purely selfishness and horribleness, and she provides a sense of you can be all those things and still be a good person. Right towards the end of the film, there's a discussion where one character says, "Life's disappointing, isn't it?" And Noriko responds, "Yes, it is." And that's kind of the whole point of the film, is to get to that moment, is to get to the point where we go, yes, life sucks, life is disappointing, life will never meet our expectation, but that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. And yeah, family will drag us down, family will seem pointless, family will always be a burden, but that doesn't mean that it's worthless. And so it's kind of a, yes, life's disappointing, yes, that's how it is kind of thing. We have to all accept that. And I think it's about accepting that life will disappoint us and then just moving on as best we can through that. So Tokyo Story is a depressing masterpiece, but a wonderful masterpiece. It's beautifully made, it's made with passion and energy, it's deeply moving, there's lots of think about, and it just holds up as one of the finest films from the Japanese golden age of cinema, and it's just a masterpiece. I love it to bits, and I think it's wonderful. So that's what I think of Tokyo Story. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've seen it, so please leave me a comment. If you like this review, please give it a like. If you want to hear more of my reviews, you can subscribe. If you want to read more of my reviews, you can follow me on Letterboxd or Twitter, links in the description. And thank you for watching.